Welcome back to Passionate About Music Education, a channel dedicated to you, the music educator. If you're an instrumentalist finding yourself in a position where you are running a choir or being asked to take over a choral program, here are a few tips that will help you feel confident in being able to support a singer, even if you're not an experienced singer yourself. First of all, don't panic if you find yourself being asked to take over a choral program. Many of the skills you already have as a musician and as an instrumentalist will transfer over to supporting your students in the choral program. There are a couple of things for us to think about as instrumentalists supporting our singers that are slightly different that you can use to help them be super successful. The first point is really how singers approach learning a new piece of music. When you and I started learning instruments, I learned the clarinet, I was taught to read the pitch and the notation at the same time as applying it to my instrument. So when I was learning to play EDC, learned the notes, learned the fingering, started to play the simple melodies with crotchets and minims, and then obviously you progress. So there was the music reading that generally happened at the same time as applying it to the instrument. However, our singing students approach music in a different way. They have much better ears than us because they tend to sing along to recordings, their favourite pop stars, and they're focused on the words and the lyrics. They're not really focused on the notation. How does that music get notated? It's kind of secondary. They're not really looking at it. They're generally focused on the lyrics. So our job is to understand that that's their starting point, which of course means then they have gaps in their music notation reading generally at the beginning stages. So what can we do to help them? Well, first of all, don't go diving straight into doing 10 lessons of music theory and stop singing, because that won't help our singers. What we need to do is start encouraging them to look away from the lyrics and look at what else is on the page, particularly if you're singing from a proper piece of notated music, a choir piece or a song book. Even with my choirs, when most of the students came for fun as an extracurricular option that they did at lunchtime or after school, they really wanted to get good at singing. So I moved away from just giving them lyric sheets with just the words, and I would always give them a copy of the music. I didn't expect them to be reading the music, but I did point out key points in the music to help them. So I would show them which part was a soprano and alto. I would teach them what repeat marks are, the first time bar and second time bar. Very useful for our singing students to understand how to navigate around the music. I'd point out long notes where they would have to use all those breathing warm-ups where you're trying to encourage them to hold 8 beats and 12 beat notes in your warm-up practice. Here's a point where you have to hold this note at this point for 4 beats. Now, this is a great opportunity for your singers who maybe do then start to have piano lessons and other instrumental lessons to start connecting the two together. So that's also really important. My first tip really is try to incorporate music notation where you can, and to encourage your students to look at the shapes of the phrases, whether the circles of your minims or your semi-breves with the pitches, are they going up or down, and then try to bring in all that musical terminology, like the dynamics and the time signature and the phrasing marks and how long to hold notes. The more you bring that in a fun, practical way, it will help support those students improve their music literacy. In the same way that when you and I learned a musical instrument, we were learning a note or a beat or something to apply to the music. So, for instance, the first time you learned how to play a B flat on the clarinet is because you're playing a B flat. First time you come across a dotted minim is because it's the first piece in the method book that has it. It's an opportunity for you to highlight important pieces of music theory that will help them become more confident performers. And my next piece of advice is to remember that our singers have really nowhere to hide. When I play my clarinet, I can hide behind the clarinet. If it squeaks, I can blame the clarinet. If I play the wrong note, I can kind of, look at my partner and we just, chuckle, but we get on with it. We're hiding behind the instrument much of the time because really, although we're playing the music and it's still us performing, there is a barrier between us and the audience with that instrument. Whereas with singers, it's much more exposed because it is completely about you. So you'll find that our young singers are scared more than our instrumentalists because it's so exposing. And truthfully, if you watch any of the talent shows on the television, which our students do, they will see how much judgment there is on the singers, regardless of whether they're good singers or, you know, average singers, or just love singing but aren't that great. We see all that judgment and our students see it. So of course they're very aware, particularly once they come into middle school and high school, of other people's judgment of them. And they are very conscious of what their peers think of them. So our job is to help them navigate their confidence, take away some of the fears, normalise what it's like to sing and perform in front of an audience, whether that's an audience of their parents, whether that's a concert, whether they're singing in a group or singing as a soloist, or even singing in front of their peers. I promise you, standing up and singing as a 14-year-old child, singing in front of your year group is probably the most terrifying thing we can ask our students to do. They would rather sing in front of their parents and anybody else than their friends. So we have to be conscious that they are really, particularly in middle and high school, aware of what their peer group think of them. So we have to support that. We have to normalise that. We have to teach them how to become confident, how that practice is so important, how the warm-ups are so important in our confidence and helping our brain cope with the fear of performing. If you are running a choir, I would really spend time each rehearsal talking about warm-ups, singing warm-ups, you know, making them as fun as possible, being silly with them, joining in with them yourself, sing along with your choir, normalise mistakes, you know, keep it light-hearted and fun so they can see it doesn't matter what age you are, you know, as you're learning music, you've still got to go through that process of learning and you're going to make mistakes and it's all very normal. We need to do that for our singers because we have to remember they are so much more vulnerable than our instrumentalists because they have nothing to hide behind. My next tip is really think about your repertoire and what you're teaching your students. There is such a big push in the community to keep doing 3-part, 4-part SATB. Now that's fantastic if you're in a school where you've had a choral program for 20 years and it's already established and you've got your great feeders coming in and you've built that tradition. That's awesome. In reality, most of us aren't in that situation, so we have to pick music that is suitable for the voices that we have in our group. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to be able to do SATB, SAT, and then SA and unison, or even 2-part, 3-part, where I've had maybe a few boys and a number of girls, and I don't want them to miss out or their voices have not broken yet. So the flexibility has to be there in terms of what materials you have for the group of students you have in front of you and the voices they have. There really isn't anything wrong with singing 2 or 3 unison songs at the beginning of your program and then adding in, you know, a 2-part piece to start stretching them, even if they don't perform that in a concert. Do not feel like you have to go into SATB straight away. We wouldn't do that with our instrumentalists. We wouldn't go straight into giving them, I don't know, a grade 4 standard orchestral piece or a grade 4 concert band piece. So we can't expect to be doing that with a beginner choir. The biggest mistake most choir directors make, and certainly myself, is that you dive into music that is too technically difficult, too complex, and generally in too many parts to start with. So please don't feel that you have to sing 4-part choral music straight away. It's probably going to be too difficult and challenging and will put your singers off. So don't be afraid to do unison songs. Don't be afraid to do 2 parts rather than SA or SAT. Because that will help if you've got a small choir or you have maybe a few boys singing your choir whose voices are not tenors yet, and sort of that kind of switch in between alto and sort of tenor. Those 2-part arrangements are really great. Really, the main thing you need to do is think about the vocal range, how wide it is, doing warm-ups and exercises to help stretch the students, particularly the girls, up to those high notes, because they tend to sing with all the boys' songs on the radio or on the internet, because they don't listen to the radio anymore. So they're kind of really great in their chest voice and not so strong in the head voice. So again, warm-ups that help develop that, and their confidence to sing there, you know, with the airflow, and with the same with the boys, it's kind of stretching their voices in sort of both directions as well. That's much more important for you to find that repertoire, that easier repertoire for our students. Remember, majority of your singers are not going to practice in the same way as your instrumentalists do, and many of them won't be having one-to-one music lessons. I think it's really important also that you help students understand how karaoke backing tracks are made. So if they are singing to backing tracks, that they're again finding songs that are in their vocal range, because not all backing tracks are in the same key. And some of those backing tracks are really great because they have all the full harmony in the backing track, and some backing tracks you'll find are actually really awful to sing along with because they're so sparse in what's going on in the accompaniment that trying to find your pitch and sing in tune is really difficult. So something that, you know, that you could sing confidently as being accompanied by the piano, then you go to that backing track and you can't find your note, is actually quite sort of demoralising, because then you think, well, I can't sing, and it's not necessarily that. Might be the fact that the backing track is not that great. So again, helping your students find those. And then also, if you are, you know, working towards learning songs, is showing lots of repertoire to students, songs that are being the song you're playing being performed by other groups, because you'll find the majority of that now on YouTube. Companies like JW Pepper now put all their choral parts onto YouTube so that you can, as a director, be able to go and listen to it. But they're such a great resource to share with your students so they can go and practice and sing along with it. Tip 4 really is learn your vocal range of your students and the capabilities. You know, if you're trying to find a song that's got top G's all the way through it for you girls, they have to have the confidence and the ability and understanding of how to use their air and their head voice really well to do that. Majority of students won't be able to do that comfortably. It's also the same as carols. If you're singing carols with your choir at Christmas, you may find that you need to transpose them down a little bit, because not just your choir will struggle to sing up to those really high notes, but also your congregation if you're getting them to join in. Majority of the pop songs that we sing and hear nowadays has a very limited range, which of course sits mainly in that chest voice range for the girls, so that singing up in those high notes, which you'd expect them to be able to do really confidently, we're finding more and more the students struggle with that. So it's something for you to consider as an instrumentalist, how you help your students be confident with singing high notes. In the same way we would do that when our violinists are trying to go up to the top part of their instrument, and, you know, how to make a beautiful sound and not be scared of high notes. And, you know, same as you're playing a clarinet, you go to those high notes and everybody gets scared and then they don't sound so nice. So they kind of translate, those fears cross over between instrumentalists and vocalists. And my final tip for today is really don't undervalue the student voice in your choral program. One of our strengths of our singers is the fact that they actually listen to a lot of music. They sing a lot of songs, and they're really clear of what music they like singing and the types of repertoire they sing. Over the years, my students have given fantastic ideas for repertoire, songs that I would have never found on the internet or found, you know, on a search by myself, because I don't have the same taste of music as they do, and that's perfectly okay. And I think it's really important that we encourage our singers to share an input, whether that's choosing the repertoire. You know, you could show them the JW Pepper 2-part songs and say, I'd like you to vote for, you know, your 3 top favourite, which encourages them, of course, to go and listen to choral singing, following scores, and you know, really selecting the music they like, which means you'll get better buy-in and they're more likely to practice. But they'll find great solo songs that you would never have discovered in a way that maybe our instrumentalists aren't as open to, because they tend to work from those method books and the set works that we give them. Our singers tend to be much more exploring repertoire than our instrumentalists. Encourage your choral students to get involved in having a say into their repertoire, because it will definitely help improve retention for your program and enthusiasm and that sort of relationship building that's really important. Lots of carrots, I feel, with our singers, giving them opportunities to go out and perform particularly if you're asking them to perform in assembly in front of their peers. You need something positive to outweigh that. I think it's really important to have a discussion with your accompanist and to work and liaise with them about what you actually need them to support in the concert. Most accompanists as instrumentalists will play their part expecting the choir to be confident enough to sing their part, and that is absolutely true with professional singers. But we're not working with professional singers, we're working with students. Some of those will be having one-to-one lessons in advance and can hold their part, and a majority of the students you have won't be having instrumental one-on-one lessons and therefore will need more encouragement support. So your accompanist must include the harmony or the melody or some specific note that the altos can't find to help your students, and you need to make sure you communicate that with the accompanist so your group will still feel confident in the concert. Try to do those final performances in the concert venue if you can, and of course once they go in there they'll find that the acoustics sound different, they can't hear their friends, they feel like vocally exposed. Again, normalise that and explain it and help them feel confident in performing, which is a little bit different to your instrumentalists who are already sat in their group and will have that sound coming at them, so they're more confident with that. I really hope you found this video helpful for your singers. Enjoy working with them. It'll bring you so much joy and happiness in your music career and music teaching, and I look forward to seeing you again here on the channel very soon.